Hello and welcome to the ET5, a compact sedan that now represents the smallest and most affordable model available from China's best-known premium electric automaker, NIO. But that statement raises a few questions for me. First, does this thing have what it takes in terms of driving dynamics to actually compete with cars like the Tesla Model 3 and the BMW i4 in this segment? And second, has moving this far down market compromised NIO's ability to provide the premium user experience that they're known for? All these questions and more will be answered after the channel intro.
With hands-on test drives and reviews of exciting Chinese market vehicles, Wheelsboy is the #1 source for China auto insights. Be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook.
First things first, since I'm already behind the wheel of the car, let's talk about how it drives. I want to start with what I think is the most important difference between this car and NIO's larger sedan, the ET7. The ET7 has a distinctly front-wheel drive biased driving dynamic. The ET5, on the other hand, does not.
All ET5s make a total of 360 kilowatts and 700 newton-meters of torque from their dual-motor powertrains. That's considerably less than the 480 kilowatts and 850 newton-meters of the larger ET7, hence a 0 to 100 km/h time of 4 seconds instead of 3.8.
That slightly slower sprint to 100 km/h actually belies the fact that this thing feels much sportier than the ET7, much more like a sports sedan, and that's because it feels rear-wheel drive biased. Liberal applications of the throttle will result in oversteer, as opposed to the ET7, where they result in immediate and often overwhelming understeer. Add to that the fact that it has slightly more direct and communicative steering, and you have the sportiest NIO yet.
But while the 5-link front and rear suspension delivers better turn-in and steering feel, it's not as comfortable as previous NIO models equipped with air suspension. It also doesn't have double-pane glass, so NVH is noticeably higher. It would seem that the title of Sportiest NIO also comes with the title of Least Comfortable NIO.
The lack of air suspension doesn't mean it rides like an ox cart, and the lack of double-pane glass doesn't mean that highway NVH will have you going deaf, but it does feel different than other NIOs that I've driven. Slightly less soft, slightly less cosseted than those cars. The thing is, I wouldn't go so far as to say that this thing handles as well as a BMW i4 or a Tesla Model 3. The i4 in particular feels much more eager to be thrown into corners. The steering is more direct and communicative. The front end is lighter. It feels more like a traditional compact sports sedan. Then again, once you start looking at the prices, the difference actually doesn't seem that big. This car, here in China at least, starts at $48,000 for a 75 kilowatt-hour battery pack version. The Tesla Model 3 Performance starts at almost the exact same price. A BMW i4, on the other hand, starts $20,000 higher.
ET5 models with a larger 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack start at $56,000 and promise 710 kilometers of CLTC range versus the 560 kilometers of the 75 kilowatt-hour pack. But all these prices assume you are buying the pack outright. If you choose to buy the car and lease the battery pack at a cost of around $140 a month for the smaller pack and $240 a month for the larger pack, the price drops to about $37,500.
It's worth mentioning that this car has battery swapping available, which the BMW and the Tesla do not. You'll notice I haven't mentioned the 150 kilowatt-hour solid-state battery that NIO has been promising for a long time now. That battery is supposed to deliver 1,000 kilometers of range in the ET5. The problem is, NIO says that one battery costs as much as a whole ET5, so apparently they're only going to be releasing it for rental starting in the summer of 2023, with a buyout option to come in the future.
Not to be outdone by Tesla, the ET5 comes with the company's latest driver assistance system, now powered by 4 NVIDIA chips with a total of 1,016 TOPS computing power. All that computing power is harnessed by 33 sensors, including a roof-mounted LiDAR unit. The ET5 isn't the new standard for handling in its segment, but it's a serious improvement for NIO. Part of the reason it feels more athletic than the ET7 is the reduced size, shaving 31 centimeters in overall length, including 17.2 centimeters from the wheelbase.
The resulting design is tauter and sportier than the ET7. Our ET5 test car has a bunch of optional features here on the outside, including this sunbathe yellow paint color. That costs an extra $1,400 and is only available on the ET5, not other NIO models. You also have the same cost for the 20-inch wheels. These are bigger, of course, than the standard 19 inches, and underneath, optional orange brake calipers that will set you back $500. And finally, the moon theme. What that means is you get darker trim around the windows, as well as darkened badges throughout the car.
The ET5 can also be equipped with an electronically deployable tow bar, just like the NIO ES7 midsize SUV. If you don't want to spend the extra $1,000, you can skip the tow bar and just put your things in the trunk, which measures a relatively small 381 liters. The ET5 can be equipped in real Napa leather, but the owner of this car chose to save themselves at least $3,200 by just sticking with the base black and tan synthetic leather. They did, however, choose the Comfort Pack, which adds features like massaging and cooling front row seats and heated rears for an additional $1,400.
Even in this base trim, the interior looks great. I'm particularly a fan of the rose gold elements that you find on the steering wheel as well as the door panels. But once you start to look a little bit more closely, the cost cutting starts to become apparent. The buttons here on the center console, for example, are plastic instead of being metal like they were on the ET7. In fact, when you start to look around, you start to see that there's quite a bit more plastic on this interior. It's nice plastic, matte finished, interesting speckled pattern to it, not some piano black plastic garbage, but it's still plastic.
The lower dash and doors are covered in a type of technical fabric that seems to be an increasingly popular styling choice in cars these days. The strangest choice can also be found on the doors, where they've chosen to use some type of rubber material, similar to what they used to line the center console storage cubby and the wireless charging pad. It's interesting, but not very high-end.
Speaking of the center console, the lid for the center console storage area is pretty darn loose, considering the fact that this car has only driven 7,000 kilometers since it was sold. But that's not the most pressing issue. The most pressing issue in the ET5 for me is the seating position, which isn't particularly comfortable. That's because the floor is so darn high in this car. I think that's most likely due to the fact that they have to package that battery swapping technology, but whatever the reason may be, someone of my height, 1.75 meters tall, about 5 foot 9 inches, it's kind of difficult for me to get into an ideal seating position. I can eventually get used to it, as could my coworkers who are up to 1.8 meters tall, say about 6 feet or so. Anyone taller than that, though, I really don't think it will be a very comfortable car for them.
The rear is no better. While legroom is good, headroom is quite tight, and you have the same high floor. You also only get one USB port back there, which is fewer than you get in much cheaper Chinese cars. One USB port may be something the Germans can get away with, but NIO is a smart EV brand known for interiors that are full of features.
Moving into a new segment, especially a more affordable one, is a challenge for any automaker, and NIO is no different. As I pointed out, there's definitely some areas that could use improvement in this car, including the interior packaging and some of those strange material choices. But even so, I think it offers quite a bit when it comes to the design, inside and out, and the driving experience for the price, particularly if you don't go crazy with the options and you rent that battery pack. All right, that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check us out on all of our social media and our website, links in the description below. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit the bell.